So in the last video, we started the conversation of multiple time frames by understanding the theory that Charles Dow put out there with 3 levels of the trend. I want to go one step further, and we're going to talk about a guy named Ralph Nelson Elliot. Now, Ralph Nelson Elliot came along, and he's credited with what we call the wave principle. And what he did is he built upon the Dow theory of 3 levels of the trend. But what Elliot did is he recognized that trends not only are happening at multiple levels, but they're happening in patterns that we refer to as a 5-3 wave formation. That's going to be your primary impulse move there. And then it has a corrective move. So we have a 5 wave up, 3 waves down, and then the whole thing continues. But here's the interesting thing. The pattern itself repeats at a fractal. And this is what I want to get into here. What is a fractal, and how does that relate to multiple time frames? Well, take a look at this snowflake. This snowflake is a really great example of a fractal. Notice if I were to take any one component here. For example, I'm going to take this snowflake right here and just look at the way this breaks down. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides to it. And inside of it, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, it's got 6 little snowflakes inside of it. Well, what if I go bigger? If I go one step bigger, you're going to notice that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look at that. Exactly 6 snowflakes that make up what is actually a larger snowflake with 6 sides. This is a fractal relationship. A fractal is when you've got an image that creates an image, and each component of the image is a smaller or a larger variation of the exact same image. Now notice I could take this thing down, and maybe hard to see on your computer screens here, but if I were to, let's just pick one of these in here. If I were to zoom in on this little guy right here, well, notice what he is. He's got 6 sides, and he's made up of the 6 smaller little snowflakes that are inside there, and each of those are made up of a smaller variation as well. This is what we call a fractal. And what Ralph Nelson Elliot discovered is he discovered that this 5-3 formation is not just happening in the market, it's happening at the various levels of trend. What are those levels of trend? Primary, intermediate, and minor. I don't care about the 5-3. Here's what the 5-3 ends up looking like. It looks like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave sequence up with an ABC correction down. That's the general principle. But I don't really care about the counting of these because there's too many variations to make this super simple. Here's what I care about. What I care about is what Elliot discovered, which is whenever you've got a 5-3 sequence here, if I take any one of these waves right here and I break it down, watch what happens. It also breaks down into a 5 wave sequence. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves up with an ABC corrective pattern here, and then the whole thing repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you get a 5-wave corrective pattern, or 3-wave corrective pattern there. This is the fractal that Elliot discovered. Now watch what happens. If I zoom in and I go one step further, let's go one layer right down here, and let's put a line on there, and boom, there it is. 5-3, 5 up, 3 down, 5 up, 3 down. And now you start to see a primary trend, you see an intermediate trend, and you see a minor level trend. Now here's what's interesting. You ready for this one? Watch this. I'm going to draw this one on the screen. If I were to draw a line straight up through here, notice what I've got? I've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave sequence that completes in an ABC. And notice what that makes. It makes part of a bigger wave 1. And so what you see with the fractal here is you see that there's a relationship both higher and lower to these wave sequences. Well, what Elliot discovered is Elliot went up and down multiple levels here. Right in the middle, he built off of Charles Dow's 3 primary, intermediate, and minor levels. Built off those 3. And he took it up and he said that the primary waves make up a larger cycle that we call the cycle level. The cycle makes up a larger cycle we call the supercycle. And the supercycle makes up a larger level called the grand supercycle. These are getting to be huge cycles of market oscillations. But you can also take it down to smaller levels. So the minor level will subconstruct into the minute level, or the minute level, sorry. The minute level will subconstruct into the minute level, and then you've got the sub-minute level. And so what Elliot discovered is it doesn't matter if you're going up or if you're going down, you've got variations of this fractal. Now, I'm going to make it really simple for you. I just explained Elliott wave in like 5 minutes to you here. But here's what matters. We're going to keep it really simple. The key here is to not make it complicated. The key is to understand the concept. The theory, the fractal theory is that multiple levels of trends are happening at any given time. That's the practical theory right there. That's what you need to understand. Forget 5-3. Don't try to count waves. Don't try any of that right now. What you need to understand is that the multiple fractals are happening. Call it the 3 trends that Dow did: primary, intermediate, and minor. Keep it that simple. And if you can just identify the primary trend for any time frame and build it from there, your life is going to be really simple. Now watch how simple this starts to work. I am on a weekly chart, and it is easy to see the primary trend. It is right there. There's the primary trend. There's your old primary trend. Your new primary trend is a sideways consolidation. Now if I wanted to identify intermediates on here, I could do that. There's your intermediate waves. Here's your intermediate waves of the new one. If we wanted to go down to the minor level, it's the black line chart there. That's the minor level. So that's really easy. You can look at this. You can say, where's the big picture trend? Just simply view that. Now watch this. That's the weekly chart. If we were to zoom in just on that right there, look at the wave construction there. Up, down, up. Okay, just look at that little picture right there. I'm going to zoom in. You ready for this? We're going all the way down to a 4-hour chart. And what do you see? I see up, down, up. But you notice that up, down, up, that was a very small minor level move on the weekly chart. It's the primary move here on a 4-hour chart. Look at that. And inside that, that little up, down, up actually ends up looking like an intermediate move of part of a primary trend here on the 4-hour chart. And guess what? There's a minor level move happening on the 4-hour chart. Now, is that sub-minute or minute or blah, blah, blah? I don't know. I don't care. Here's what I know. I can look at any chart I want to, and I can quickly say, there's my primary trend. It subs down into an intermediate level, and then just the day-to-day quick movement is going to be my minor level move. Now, watch this. I'm going to highlight this over on the right side of the chart. You ready for this? You see this little squiggle? I mean, it just looks like a little minor level move here on a 4-hour chart. Watch this. We're going to go down to a 10-minute chart. And that little squiggle on a 10-minute chart looks like this nice primary trend. And inside that primary trend, you've got intermediate level moves, and of course, you've got minor level moves. Now, if I go into an intermediate, or if I go into a 10-minute chart and I say, where's my sub-minute minute level and blah, 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 trying to identify all these levels of the trend, I'm going to go crazy and we'll all be confused. But if you can just look at the multiple time frames and say, there's my primary trend here, there's my primary trend there, and understand what's happening, watch how we start to pull it all together. It all works together. So notice what happened. That 10-minute chart, the primary trend of the 10-minute chart was just the little minor level move on a 4-hour chart. That primary trend on a 4-hour chart was just this minor level move on a weekly chart. And so if you want clarification, people say, I have no idea what's happening with a minor level move. Zoom into a tighter time frame. Zoom into a smaller time frame. Figure out what's happening with that primary trend. And guess what? That will bring some clarification to the higher level of the chart. And so that's why we use multiple time frames. Now here is the clincher. You ready? I've just taught the theory to you. Watch this. It works the same with cloud charts. What is the benefit of the Ichimoku system? The benefit of the Ichimoku system is that it helps identify primary trends and confirm those. Well, what if we start having primary trends confirmed on multiple time frames, multiple levels of the trend? Well, we can start to set the odds in our advantage. So take a look here. If I look at the bottom right corner, here's my weekly chart. Zoom in. I've got a clear bearish trend. That's my big picture trend is a bearish trend. Now, I do have some support coming up here. This could be an issue. Maybe if I look over here to the left, I've got some support. But the trend itself looks to be bearish. And other than that little support there, I'm clearly in the clear for a bearish trade. Now, let me zoom back out and let's go now to a 1-hour chart. To a daily chart. Now, if I zoom in on the daily chart, you notice, well, on the daily chart, I'm still have a little congestion happening here. And the trend has slowed down a little bit. Does this go in line with the weekly chart? It does. Because what did we see on the weekly chart? We saw on the weekly chart that while we're in a bearish trend, we're hitting a support level. And here we see the daily chart reflecting that exactly. Now, if this daily chart breaks below these support levels, we're back in the clear on the daily chart, and the weekly chart will follow. And so you see what the daily chart's doing is it's bringing clarification. You looked at that weekly chart. If I zoom back out here, if we look at that weekly chart, you say to yourself, I'm not sure what's happening in here. It's too big of a picture. What's happening in the minor level of the weekly chart? Go into your daily chart and you can get a better picture. Now, if you can't see quite what's happening in all that minor level junk on the daily chart, what do? We go down to the 1 hour chart. And sure enough, looky there, the 1 hour chart is saying, hey, I'm in the clear. So there's a good chance that this daily chart's about to break bearish and confirm that bigger picture trend of the weekly chart. And if you're having problems in the 1 hour chart, well, you can go down even further. The 30-minute chart's going to look a lot like it here. You just notice that we can subdivide this even further down here where these little short-term minor pictures are showing up. But you see clearly the 30-minute chart is obviously in a bearish trend. The 1 hour chart's in a bearish trend. The daily charts are ready to break into a bearish trend. The minute that daily chart breaks into a bearish trend, it will be confirming the weekly chart. And so that's how we start to take these fractal concepts of multiple time frames and pull it together.